Doug Stanhope, I think, is the best comedian alive, and I don't even think there's a close second. And there's some good ones. There's Lapel, there's Rock, there's God, anybody out there who's doing good work. Nobody does work like Doug Stanhope. Nobody. There is nobody who does work. I mean, Doug Stanhope has the life that I want, which will sound kind of crazy to Doug Stanhope, who seems to be bored with life. But what I mean is the following. He doesn't go to comedy clubs like Yuck Yucks or Bananas or fucking Chuckles anymore. He doesn't do that. Over time, what he did was he built a hardcore audience. And he's booking. I saw him at a pool hall in Fredericksburg, Virginia one time. I've seen him a couple times. Saw him there and somewhere. I forget what the other part was where I saw him. But here's the point. He doesn't go to traditional venues. He keeps up a mailing list. And people who want to see him only go to see him. And so he never has to worry about, if I do this comedy, will I get on the Tonight Show? If I do this kind of comedy, is this going to ruin my Netflix special? All that shit does not. Oh, Bill Burr's another one I like. Does not give a shit at all. Doesn't care, because he is completely divorced from that economy. He has created his own economy. That is what I want to do. I want to be divorced from the traditional MMA economy, and I'm not there yet. I'm not sure exactly what it'll take to get there, but that's my goal. My goal is to have my own economy separate from that one, because it will free you up to do the kinds of content you want to do. It just is. It gives you a more direct relationship with your audience. There's a lot of benefits to it. So Doug Stanhope, 1. 2, Patrice ONeal. Fucking miss Patrice ONeal every day, dude. I saw Patrice ONeal, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe 50, 60 times in my life. I lived in New York City in 2002, 3, and 4 for a time. And that was when it was him, Burr, Keith Robinson, Nick DiPaolo, Colin Quinn, Jim Norton, you name it. And these guys were and if you guys have ever been in the Village in New York City, they were at the Comedy Cellar every fucking night. And if they weren't at the Comedy Cellar, they were at Boston Comedy Club, which is just around the corner from the pizza spot down there in the Village in New York. And it was, every time I went there, it was just killer shit after killer shit. And Patrice ONeal, dude, when Patrice ONeal walked in the room, and I think Bill Burr said this, they would always, so if you'd ever been to the Comedy Cellar, it's a famous venue in New York City. It's literally in a cellar. And up top of it, it was a Middle Eastern restaurant. I don't know for sure if it still is. I haven't been back in years. But these guys, you would go up to the Middle Eastern restaurant. You could just go there without going to the Comedy Cellar. And in the back, you'd always see the comedians hanging out. I one time saw Jerry Seinfeld and Dave Chappelle all hanging out together back there. And they would always say it didn't matter who was back there. When Patrice showed up and sat down, Daddy's home. Daddy's home. Because they were all busting each other's balls. And no one had, off the top of his head, comedy like Patrice. He was utterly brilliant, totally unique. And again, Patrice said something that I've really thought about for a long time, which was, when I go to shows, I do not want to have 100% applause. I want to have 90% applause, but I want to piss off 10%, because that tells me I'm doing something that is a little bit artistic and on edge and maybe ahead of its time. But you're out there pushing boundaries if you're pissing off people too. That is exactly how. I won't say it's exactly how I've modeled my career, because that's not true. But I've thought about that. I've thought about what that means when you sort of curry an audience. I'd rather have a deeper connection to 90% of people than the sort of superficial popular one where I'm required to give up something in terms of my views to appeal to you. And Patrice was utterly unapologetic. Utterly unapologetic. And he was misogynistic and everything else too, but he always had this totally unique worldview where you knew it was his idea and only his idea. And he was fucking brilliant. I miss Patrice ONeal every day, dude. So he'd be 1. Well, that's 2. So Doug, Patrice, Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks was preachy. I realized that probably, somewhat overrated as a comedian, because they held him up to be like, oh, was he the best ever? Well, maybe he's not the best ever. But another one of these guys who was trying to do something different and learned and marching to the beat of his own drum and total command of an audience. Just absolutely sensational. True TV did a documentary on him narrated by Janine Garofalo. If you've not seen it, you got to see it. And there's a New Yorker profile on him. I've read some of his the books written about him. I have right there, Love All the People, the Bill Hicks book. Tragically dying in his early 30s after being edited on going on the not the Tonight Show. It was the competitor. Well, he's savage, Jay Leno. You ever heard of his Jay Leno thing, where Jay Leno commits suicide and he's such a corporate shill that when he puts a gun in his mouth and blows his brains out, his brains form the version of an NBC peacock on the wall. So Bill Hicks is one. It was on who's the Letterman, when Letterman went on there, and like no one had edited anyone on stage like that on American television since Elvis shaking his hips, and he died of cancer soon after that. Bill Hicks was a big one. Richard Pryor, probably the best stand-up comedian I've ever seen. One of the most brilliant speakers on race relations in America, but still being funny, of course, the whole time. Just a total command of the medium in every way possible. The way he spoke, his physical mannerisms, dealing with drug abuse the way that he did, just lived this life hard, and prolific for a time anyway as well. People forget about his movie with Gene Wilder. What was it? Hear No Evil, See No Evil? One was blind, one was deaf, and they had to work together. Richard Pryor, just truly one of the greats. For my fifth choice, maybe Bill Burr. For a time, I would have said Nick DiPaolo. I really liked old Nick DiPaolo stuff, but he's sort of gone on. He's become really angry about the state of politics. But his old his old comedy is fucking hilarious. He has this one bit where he's like, you ever notice like in every sitcom, the dad is the idiot? Like the mom is the genius, the dad is the idiot, and the kids are all smarter than the dad. And he goes, it's leaked into commercials too, because there was a commercial for AOL, and it's like AOL, so easy, Dad could do it. And he's like, oh yeah, Dad could do it. You mean the guy that bought the fucking computer? That guy? I know old Nick DiPaolo was really great stuff. I just like people, man, that were brilliant and smart and funny, but just very, very anti-mainstream kind of spirits. Because it's the only way to do things that you really believe. It's just the only way. But you could flirt with the mainstream a little bit, of course. Get that money when you can. But in general, the best comedians are the ones that really ran up against it. For me.